Welcome to Framework. I'm John, one of the hosts of Framework. With me, as always, the other host of Framework, Al. How are you today, sir?
I'm good. Just my usual self. Chinese dissident, noted astrophysicist, traitor to humanity.
As you can tell from Al's list of credits, there, it's three body problem time. It's here. It's the new Netflix show we're going to discuss today. They're a very weird sci-fi show from the creators of the Game of Thrones show, of course, David Benioff and David Weiss. They're both Davids, right? Yeah, and this is their follow-up, I guess, right? This is what ended up being their follow-up to Game of Thrones.
I guess that's a big part of the narrative is this is their baby or whatever, but it's as much from this, Chinese author that I don't know from anything else.
Can't pronounce the name, so I won't try. Yes, Mr. Sixon Lee. No, I did try, and I don't think it went very well, but it happened.
Yeah, I don't even have it in front of me. But this is just a thing where even if I knew nothing about this show, who was involved in anything, you'll be able to tell right off the bat, oh, this is adapted from a series of novels.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that would be kind of apparent. You would just never structure a TV show like this from tabula rasa,
No, Lord, no. I have read the first book of the three-book series called The Three Body Problem, and it was about 2 summers ago, I think I read that one, and so I'm a little bit equipped to discuss how it works as an adaptation. I don't know where the series goes after it. I hear pretty crazy shit. I don't know the details, though.
It seems like, and I mean, obviously, we're going to talk about spoilers for this whole first season, so I don't know why anybody would listen to this, just to see if they want to watch it. But it seems like they are promising sort of a 400-year arc of this story. And based on the little bits and crabs I've heard of it from people who've read the books, it's like they actually deliver on that.
Right. I'm still kind of in the dark about how that works in the book form. Although, well, frankly, this goes farther than the first book. This is the big Panama Canal sequence is the end of the first book. So everything beyond that, for the most part, is from future books. Not entirely, but and I guess there's characters that show up in this show that aren't even in the first book. Well, quite a few, frankly. Well, we'll get to this, but yeah.
Okay, I was trying to figure that. I guess the end of the Panama Canal episode is the Sophon thing, sort of blanketing the earth, and that's a big cliffhanger ending for a book, I suppose. Right?
Well, frankly, it's kind of an odd. It doesn't feel like an ending. It's just like, this is how it ends. Oh, okay. It definitely is a cliffhanger, but it doesn't come to a natural resolution as a book. That's for sure. The whole thing is a very odd book. It's very dense, very science heavy. A lot of the characters that are in the show do not exist in the book. Some of them are just versions of characters that are Chinese. Almost everyone in the book is Chinese, of course, even as it is a global story. So, characters like Dashi, the Ken Watanabe character, are completely different.
That's Benedict Wand, my friend. You're mixing up your Tokyo Vice and your Three Body Problem.
Those are such different actors that I don't even feel like I committed a racism there. I just fucked it up. I mean, he's Japanese. I've been watching Tokyo Vice too. Okay, so yeah,
and Shogun. So I've got a lot of sort of East Asian, vaguely familiar actors rattling around my head right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. Having read that book, I was like, this is very interesting. It's dry. It's a very strange narrative, and a lot of it is hard sci-fi details, which is not typically my favorite thing in science fiction. So I was undecided on whether I was going to continue reading. I didn't jump onto the next book, I was kind of thinking well, I'll see how the show goes. Having watched the show, I'm like, I'm going to keep going. I got to know what happens here. I'm intrigued enough.
Oh yeah, this is definitely one where you got to see what. I don't know that I'm in love with any of these characters except for maybe Benedict Wand, but I just have to see where the plot goes. I'm just like, this is taking some wild swings. They're throwing a lot of crazy concepts at the wall with a high degree of confidence, and as everybody has noted, this is a completed book series, so it's got an ending written that they're working towards. And that's also the fact it's only 3. If this was a 12 book series, this is why part of the reason I just couldn't stick it out with Wheel of Time. because I had
Right.
gathered that one had ups and downs throughout. I don't know, however 20,000 pages of God knows what.
They're not going to be making that show for the next 15 years, though. Do you think?
No. Oh God, no.
No.
I mean, they certainly couldn't possibly do it without my blessing. So,
Of course.
But this 3 books feels like it's for as ambitious and wild as this is. Like that feels like a bit off an amount that could be chewed. And yeah, if there were 9 books in the series, I'd be really worried about like following this all the way through, given how wild it's gotten in the first season. But they're like, okay, you can do 2 more seasons of this potentially, if that's what it comes out to.
That's what it's got to be. Maybe 4. I don't know. I mean, they're not really sticking to the book structure clearly. So, but a end point is very obviously in sight. You know, God knows if Netflix will allow them to do that. They're sort of notorious for not doing that now, which is a change on how they used to be. They used to kind of commit to finishing everything they started. Now it's almost nothing.
Yeah, well, there was a time, kind of a brief window, I guess, but a time 5 years ago when I guess the height of Game of Thrones would be kind of where I was at, that the new hot thing seemed to be taking a book series, turning into a TV show, and then continuing after the book was over. Let's letting the TV show run with it after that.
Not a great plan, really.
No, it didn't work that well for anybody, I don't think. But it was something that studios were briefly enamored with. I think, you know, Game of Thrones sort of ran off the cliff like Wile E. Coyote, and was just still going for a while. But they did it. You know, Handmaid's Tale was 1 book that they made into 5 seasons, and Big Little Lies was 1 book that they then did a sequel season to, even though there wasn't a sequel book to be working off of. And there's 1 or 2 other examples of that I'm blanking on now, but. You know, not that long ago, my worry would be they're going to run out of book and Netflix is going to tell them they have to keep making the show anyway. And now it's like, well, I hope they let them do another season of this, you know, pretty successful thing. I mean, it seems for whatever the success metric is for a streaming show these days, it seemed to really dominate the discourse for a week or 2, which I guess is as high as you're aiming at Netflix when you're doing the all at once binge model.
It's still the number 1 show according to my app. So, yeah, I mean, it seems to be a hit. I don't know. I mean, The Sandman seemed to be a hit a few years ago. And, I'm not even sure if they're making another one of those. So who knows how Netflix works, you know, at the same time. I think, 1.5 billion people have watched Rebel Moon Part 1 at this point, or according to Zack Snyder. So who knows? It is vague and impossible for us mere mortals to understand or know. Maybe our Lord will grant us another season of Three Body Problem. Maybe not. You know, it is not ours to know. We don't matter. We are bugs.
Yeah, it does seem from our bug's eye view that Three Body Problem had more penetration into sort of normie discourse than Sandman, though.
It seemed to, yes, but it was so quick. This was another thing
That's everything discussed.
Like this should have been a weekly show. This would have been a fun show for people to talk about week to week. And it does not get to do that because of the Netflix model. I think to its detriment. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of think that about everything anyways, but especially this one. This feels like really that the fact that I could start the next episode right after the Panama Canal one is,
yes,
I did it to myself to a certain degree, but it did the show no favors.
That would really have benefited from everyone being like, whoa, what happens now for a week? You know, because that's the same episode where the aliens announce themselves to the people. You know, it's a sort of a seismic episode. And being able to sit with that for a bit would have been nice. And,
in a way,
as opposed to just like, what are they going to do?
Episode 5 of 8, too. That's tough. You know, I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. Okay, should we talk a little about the books, the show, or the Benioff and Weiss? There's different.
There's a lot of angles of attack on this. I will say, I think that my main takeaway watching it, having read the first book, was that as a piece of adaptation, this is exceptional.
Oh yeah,
structuring this and pushing this into the format of an 8-episode TV season, is that they did an incredible job. Like like this is such a well managed piece of adaptation. I'm kind of in awe of it. It's one of the best I've seen, simply because the book is wildly. I mean, it's not different exactly. A lot of the events are the same, but it's just so uncinematic as presented. Like, there's so much stuff here. Like how much of this did you expect to take place during the Chinese Cultural Revolution, for example? You know, like a lot. But that's not where the main action is. That's a huge part of the book, as is the virtual reality video game that they're. I mean, there's only 2 episodes where they're really dealing with that in the show. That's probably half the book, maybe more. 200 pages or so. It's
what a great adaptation decision, because I had all of that I wanted.
Exactly. And there's most of these characters are not present in the first book. Certainly the group of 5, they don't really exist in that form. There's a couple Chinese characters that fill those roles. I guess the closest to being reflective of the book is Jin. I don't remember the actress's name. She's
Jess Hong.
Probably my favorite of the 5, actually. But
absolutely.
Yeah,
I was gonna say I thought she was the closest thing this show had to a main character, is what it ended up feeling like to me.
Probably, yeah. I mean, I think they spread the wealth pretty well with those. But yeah, she's the standout, I guess.
They had Game of Thrones as practice.
Yeah, exactly. But like a lot of those things kind of don't happen. Like there's no corollary for the Jack character. From what I understand, the what's the guy? The Drew, is he the guy with pancreatic cancer? Yes. That's like next book. Probably the wall facer guy too. Yeah, like a lot of these are versions of characters that have not appeared in the book I've read, and they are seamlessly.
That's crazy. That is, yeah. Well, I mean, one thing that's a little clunky about that to me is that having it is a good conceit for a show, and the show obviously is one that needs grounding in character and in people who can speak literally speak English to us, I guess, in a way, but also speak physics to us in sort of plainer terms. But that it does feel a little something about, this is a fated magical fellowship of companions that all come from the same place and are now going to be instrumental in this, epic saga. And that clashes with the hard sci-fi of it to a small degree. Not like, again, this is a minor critique, and I don't really think that I want to risk seeing the alternative that goes harder sci-fi and eschews that and makes us even more inaccessible.
Well, it exists. There is a Chinese miniseries that is apparently just the book. It is explicitly the book.
Yes, and nothing I've read about that, which is very little, because I prefer to remain spoiler free, has indicated that it's something I want to dive into, as being like 30 episodes long or something. Yeah. And filming every page of the book is what I read about it.
Yeah, I think that's the idea. I've not watched it either. Because again, the book I did not love the book. So, yeah.
Fair enough. And Jess Hong is a great place to get into the cast. I think she's phenomenal. And their standouts are Benedict Wong and Liam Cunningham, I would say.
Of course. Yeah.
Rosalind Chow and Jonathan Pryce the old pros are great. But it actually, for as much as he just has to, lie and look pale and tragic, the kid who played Billy Elliot is pretty good.
It's not Jamie Bell, is it?
No, I think I had read that he did it, like originated it on the stage or something.
Well, he's got a Billy Elliot look for sure. He's excellent.
They could have named him Billy Elliot.
Yeah. His big episode, 7, I think, is one of the high water marks of the season, I think, for sure.
Yeah. And just what they're doing with that character going forward is one of the biggest sci-fi wild swings. I'm just like, hell, let's go for this. I don't want every show to do this, but I'm willing to go for along with one show doing this for a couple of seasons. I guess my scarring from Lost has healed to a degree. I mean, I do view this a lot in terms of the lineage of Lost to Game of Thrones to something like this.
Lost, that is kind of where that's interesting. I hadn't really made that connection, but I can see that now with the ensemble and the mystery and and the several different conceits kind of getting thrown at you, and kind of changes genre slightly, episode to episode. That's interesting.
Oh, it just the way that the our Lord in this versus the others, and their relationship with the sort of disembodied voices that give them their marching orders feels very similar. But let's start with the cast for a minute, and then we can circle back to Lost or mythologies and such. Because to me, like the one, the biggest bum note on this show is.
I wonder if we have the same one. Okay.
Do you think there's one piece of terrible casting?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's Augie.
Yes,
Salazar.
it's Augie. Augie sucks. Yeah.
She's terrible. I don't even I don't know if the actress doing a terrible job. Just horrible casting. She is just so conspicuously gorgeous that it kind of ruins the entire mise en scene of this group of physics students.
I don't think she's doing a good job either. I think she's not. Compared to like everyone else, kind of nailing it. Yeah, she's really sticking out.
What I'm saying is she's so miscast that it's hard to even say what a good job would look like.
Fair point. She's wrong for the role.
Just so wrong. Just so like there's a level of beauty, where it's just like, okay, well, you now can't put this person in a thing without making that central to the character. And the show does not acknowledge that this is just, I mean, the character is supposedly a generational, brilliant science mind. But nobody seems to acknowledge it's in this package of this rail thin, with just lustrous, beautiful hair, and conspicuously, I think the medical term is luscious lips. I believe the DSM describes them that way. Like, it's just so distracting anytime she's on screen. Like I just don't buy you in this whatsoever, and particularly during the big stretches of this season when the character needs to be really like strung out, either because they're in a paranoid frenzy or a drunken depression, rut, and like you just cannot sell any of this stuff whatsoever. The guy who plays Saul, quite handsome, but can keep one tone to the line of I buy this guy. It's also kind of built in that character that he is a little bit of a science, physics dilettante and a little bit of a playboy. So he's like human level handsome. And
yeah, most of the cast is quite handsome. I mean, it's a television show, for God's sakes. But yeah, she's on a different plateau than everyone else, and it feels like it. It's a very the role is not good either. Augie is the worst written of the characters. She has to fill the role of lecturing scold as often as not. And a lot of her argument in the back half of the season comes down to like, well, we shouldn't do anything about this. And that's kind of, I don't like that. I don't find that compelling. She doesn't have an alternative really, other than just like, why don't we give up? It's several hundred years away. I don't want to dirty my hands. And it's just like, I'm tired of hearing this. Jesus.
Well, and that's sort of like Saul takes that same approach too, for at least an episode or two. Mm-hmm. But there it's presented as a sort of character flaw of his, that he's just not engaged and kind of lazy or whatever. With her, she presents it as a sort of half-assed moral stance.
Yeah.
Of, what if we just all roll over and die because then I don't have to feel bad today or something? Like, I mean, that's sort of what he's saying too, but at least he's being hedonistic about it. I don't know. Like, I find that more appealing than like he's better, not wagging his finger about how dare any of you try and save the species.
Yeah, Augie is kind of the big miss of the whole thing, honestly. And
a character that, not having read the books, felt like, is this a compilation character? It feels like they're sort of mushing together a couple of different things. And
I mean, almost whole cloth, honestly, for her role in this. Almost entirely not there, The development of the high tensile fiber is, it's just something that they have, like it's not credited to one person. And yeah, her action of the first half, the countdown, that's a different person too. It's a Chinese man, I believe.
Those are not bad adaptation decisions, though. I don't think.
I don't either. I think they're all quite good. The adaptation choices are amazing.
Yeah,
it's just that
it's the half-assed moralizing. Then it's also like it's placing her in a Skylar White mode, kind of
a bit.
The person who's saying, let's not participate in the plot of our show. That's what if. You guys are all bad for being part of this show and for no, participating in the story.
There is an element of this show. They clearly want us to think. Are they framing Liam Cunningham's Captain Wade as a bad guy exactly? Because so far I don't see him that way at all. But it feels like they want us to.
The Augie character does, and I'm totally with you. I'm like, no, I'm 100% on board with him over you.
Yeah. Now there's room for him to be a bit megalomaniacal and kind of obsessive and Ahab-like, and that's all cool. But you kind of got to address his big points first before you start chiseling away. And, the way you're doing it's not right.
You got to address that it's a fleet of whales that have expressed a definite intention to destroy humanity. It's not.
Yeah.
Like, that makes him not quite an Ahab, or they have to work harder to reframe it that way when the whale actually is going to attack the coast of New England on a date certain.
I kind of want this movie now.
Well, we don't know where these future seasons are going.
That's true. Anyway, who knows what these things even are? That's one of the.
Yeah, they could be space whales.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
But she sucks. That's the big takeaway.
The others are all good though. All the other four, all good. I love John Bradley. Samuel Tarley, I think, is terrific in this. I think one of the issues I have with the show is that I could use a little more of him. Like he's gone too fast. His energy is a nice, a comic relief, if you will, but also just sort of stands out amidst all these other geniuses.
Yeah, at the same time, I think killing him at the time they did was a really good move. Because
he didn't have time to get annoying. It's true.
Well, one, he didn't have time to get annoying, and two, it's like what I desperately need at that point is you need to establish some actual stakes to this virtual reality game you're spending so much time having these people play. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they came out like, okay, it's not just Matrix within matrices, nothing matters. He got his head cut off in the video game 9 times. But the fact that there's a real world conspiracy here that is going to involve actual murders. I really needed that to ground that VR headset crap and something I could give half a shit about.
That makes sense. I mean, like I said, it's such a big part of the book. Like, you go on hundreds of pages of those, there's many, many more iterations of learning what's going on exactly. I think it's like about page 300 when they even tell you what the 3-body problem is. It's you're learning more about the aliens, I guess, in the book a little bit, or at least what they want to present, sort of, once you figure out what you're seeing. It's interesting. I mean, look, the whole book is just, it's just big sci-fi ideas, one after another, kind of just getting pitched down the plate. Like, the countdown, or the high tensile fiber, or the VR, or the hard sci-fi space travel invasion, stuff like that. They just keep coming up. And obviously that's the appeal of the material, is you have so many big ideas getting thrown at you. And again, that's why the adaptation is so impressive, that it juggles it all.
In a book, I could more comfortably spend 100 pages at a time, just sort of with people trying to unravel a physics problem. In a way that stuff is not inherently cinematic. And I don't think putting it into a virtual reality video game inside of my streaming show does much to make it. Like, that makes it, I guess, more visually active, but not engaging to me at all in terms of a narrative. I would almost be more engaged with a good actor in front of a whiteboard scribbling than seeing an army of 2 million digital Mongols.
Oh, that's all literally there in the book. All that stuff.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. That's all part
and
of it.
And that is technically visual spectacle. I just don't give a crap about it because it's expressly fake even within the diegesis of this story. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, and I think that they are quite wise to get off that as quick as they do. In the book, it becomes a little bit like, okay, more of these guys. All right. Oh, we moved up 100 years. All right. There is so much interesting stuff. Like, they dehydrate and can be wrapped up and stored in silos. There's weird things. It keeps kind of surprising you in that way. Obviously they get off it quick, and again, they burn through that first book so fast. I understand the second and third are denser and longer for sure. So that makes sense in a way. And a lot of what they're cutting is just hard sci, and Chinese Revolution stuff. The economy with which the Ye Wing J story in the 60s is told in this is exceptional. Like, you get it all very well, but that's quite a bit of shoe leather in the book too.
Yeah. So that's what sort of baffled me a bit, to hear that the Oxford people were not in the first book at all. And I guess
wild.
not really Oxford people anyway.
Yeah.
And so is she the main character of the first book?
More or less. Yeah. I mean, I would say at least 40% of the book is her and her experiences. There's, and honestly, like, a lot of things she does in this are not as explicit. Like, she's not the head of I don't think she's the head of the anti-human movement. I guess that's not what they call themselves.
That seems so central to the character.
Yeah. But not. It's just not. I mean, she's got a kid, who's involved later. But yeah, it's really strong adaptation choices. But mostly, no. Her main thing, the main thing that she accomplishes in, I guess, the show as well, is that she becomes so disillusioned because of all the horrible shit that happens to her in her life, and that she willingly betrays humanity at a crucial moment, and you understand why. And that is all presented pretty well in the show. I don't know. Maybe I'm bringing book luggage, but I felt like it was like they hit all the points. Very well done.
No, I got that entirely. Yeah, and I mean, there's the hard sci-fi stuff runs up against limits, because I'm a little confused about something, and sometimes I'm confused about things where I'm not entirely sure that, is this just a conceit I have to roll with to get this plot moving, or is this an intentional sort of thing of dissonance that the story's going to pay off later on? But for what we had come to learn about the Santi, and what we're told about them and how they communicate with thought, like telepathy basically, and therefore are incapable of deceit with each other and don't have very good. I mean, that raises a lot of issues of how does a species survive without any level of, I guess, not just deceit, but like metaphorical thinking.
It's almost like, well, how can they not understand this if they're as developed as they are? Like, it should be within their capacity.
Well, and then how did they get like 30 years into communicating with us before having this, before Hansel and Gretel or Little Red Riding Hood was a thing that illuminated it for them? Like, that's the part, like, if that was their second or third conversation with humanity, I would kind of understand it more. But like, no, you're decades into a big, long conspiracy plan. A conspiracy which involves deceiving people.
Yeah, I think it's a conceit. I don't think there's a great answer for that one. I think but the
other conceit that could confuse me is her initial response that she gets when she gets it. That's such a cool scene, and conceit of the person, the ET on the other end saying, "Stop trying to contact us. You're lucky that I got this first, because I'm the pacifist of my species, but they will come and kill you if they see you." That doesn't seem possible with the Santi as presented, that there could be a dissident among them. They would all be aware of it instantly. They could.
Oh shit, you're right.
They're not capable of hiding things from each other.
You broke it. You broke the show. Damn it.
Or maybe that is an intentional. That's something that will be explained later on, because they seem pretty meticulous about lining up a lot of this stuff. And if I have to accept that, and then to get them to do the meticulous stuff about space traveling and solar sails and the series of nuclear bombs, and just I don't know. I'm a bit of a nerd for that stuff. I randomly, I don't know what happened, like 6 months ago, started getting served up YouTube videos about the Fermi paradox, which then I started gobbling up, and then got some more stuff about just like the practicalities of interstellar travel and all the incredible challenges and sort of seemingly immutable things that prevent us from really exploring the galaxy, and how I found a lot of that very interesting. And to the point where I'm watching this and seeing that scene with her communicating with the pacifist dissident on the ET side, be like, oh, okay, it's a dark forest thing. That's the dark forest hypothesis is one of the solutions for the Fermi paradox. come to realize later, the second book in the series is called The Dark Forest.
Dark Forest, yeah.
So it's very explicitly that. but
Uh-huh.
but this is a cool like I mean, a lot of these ideas that I've become interested in, sort of academically, but they seem very difficult to dramatize in any sort of approaching hard sci-fi way. And this is the best attempt at it I have encountered so far.
I think that might be the best thing about the show, actually, is that you get to kind of enjoy hard sci-fi ideas adapted in a traditional like television kind of way, digestible, very clear. I think that they're making a lot of big ideas very clear just from watching the show. Like you don't have to work too hard to get at these things, and that's kind of really impressive. And it's tough in the book even, which is a translation of Chinese, of course, which is tough. That's I don't know. Personally, I find reading Chinese literature to be like I'm so aware of how different the language is, and find most adaptations make it. I feel like I'm losing quite a bit in the translation. For example, the aliens are not called the Shanti in the books; they are the Trisolarans, which is must sound cooler in Chinese.
Yeah, and it's literal. It's descriptive, more descriptive than the Santi, but you're right. Santi is nice and elegant and simple and alien. I guess that is there. I haven't read a lot of translated Chinese stuff, but it probably has a feeling of like, one of the movies we're going to do in the feed coming soon is Miami Vice.
Yeah.
And that is one of the central performances in that movie is a pretty good performance, but you can just tell that, okay, this is a person who doesn't speak English delivering these lines phonetically. And you probably get that with translations a bit.
It's a little that, yeah. I mean, it's just hard to judge how good the writing is, especially on something with so much science in it. The storytelling is good. The narrative is interesting. It's hard to get a grasp on the writer's voice at all for me.
Right.
I don't know. I don't read a ton of Chinese translations, but yeah, it's something I have noticed.
But the one that's pertinent to this,
yes.
So that,
yeah.
And this is something where the nature of the material is going to compound that feeling, because it's as much as it's in a different language of Mandarin or whatever, it's also in a different language of theoretical physics.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
That has to be translated as well. Like, so there's kind of two levels of translation. And to that, maybe this is a good time to talk about Benioff and Weiss, because what I think you're kind of praising, and I am too, is like, thank God they found some Hollywood hacks to soften up this hard sci-fi and deliver it to us in a spoon feed us the Hollywood pablum version of it, because that actually does. It's one way harder than it looks or sounds. This might. I mean, me, that I am very big into the art of adaptation. I'm very interested in that. I like attempting to do it myself in ways, but it is a thing that I think when you do it really well, you don't necessarily get a ton of credit for it.
Right.
You make yourself kind of invisible as a translator, and you make things look easy that are really hard, and that's the goal. But also, then it makes it look like you didn't do that much.
It's not really the case in this one, though. I think you're aware of how hard what they're doing is.
The material is so inherently difficult. I mean, that's kind of the case of Game of Thrones too. That's
true.
There was so many spinning plates that you're kind of impressed by the circus act of it. Even if there's a lot of stuff under the hood there that I think they also did to make that accessible and make sense on TV.
They are really, really good at that. I mean, it's what happened with Game of Thrones is, it's settled science at this point. But like, it's easy to forget. I mean, I think that the final act of Game of Thrones really overshadows what was absolutely incredible television for a long time. It's not just adaptation. I mean, I think the common rap is that once they ran out of books, they blew it. Mm-hmm. But they wrote great scenes that aren't even in the books for Game of Thrones and for Three Body Problem, like terrific acting scenes for people all the time. It honestly, watching this, a thought I had was just like, what the fuck happened with Game of Thrones? How did they just take their eye off the ball? They were too excited about Star Wars. I don't know how they allowed that to happen.
Oh, I imagine there was some burnout for sure.
I guess. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, okay. The other thing is,
I don't want to
I'm
make it about that.
no,
So,
but I do. So I'm a defender of those guys in that, in as much as there is just an absurd level of vitriol against those two guys, like personally, that
yeah,
came up around the end of Game of Thrones that I always found uh, ridiculous and ugly. And
for sure.
I'm baffled by the again. And we've talked about this in different contexts before, even Game of Thrones specifically. Just being a veteran nerd of sci-fi fantasy epics, I just come to expect them to shit the bed a bit at the end. That's the arc of these universes. But other people, maybe like too many normies, got on board, and they were not ready for that, and took it so goddamn personally when Game of Thrones. And the amount of not just like, well, that was disappointing, and that sucked, but like, these fucking hacks are the biggest pieces of shit that Hollywood has ever foisted upon us, and blah blah blah. And that's still so prevalent, even in Three Body Problem discourse that I've seen. And I'm like,
it's a shame.
Get a goddamn grip, some of you people.
Yeah, I mean, have you seen an Akiva Goldsman film? Have you seen the Dark Tower adaptation, for example? There's you can get really let down by this shit. Like it exists in much worse examples. And I think we've discussed when Game of Thrones, like the actual things that happen are fine. It's just kind of not done as well as it should be. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to me, they're fine. But also, I think this may be part of,
right.
All conjecture, maybe part of the contributing factor to the burnout or to the feeling of like being a little checked out towards the end is when they ran out of books. They did run out of material to directly adapt, but they were still beholden to a whole bunch of plot points that they had been handed.
I mean, it's the same problem George R.R. Martin has now.
Exactly.
Can't finish that's goddamn things. Yeah.
But people don't. I mean, there's some animosity towards George R. R. Martin for just not doing.
Oh, sure.
That seemed to people regard him as lazy or whatever. But but to the point of like their job was especially hard at that point because it wasn't like, okay, you ran out of books. Now it's up to you guys to make up your own ending, and they fucked that up so bad that everybody turned on them. Like, no, they still didn't have free reign to make up their own ending. They just no longer. They're good. Here's a bunch of disconnected points, and there's no roadmap for them. But you also have to hit all of them. Mm-hmm. And that is an especially difficult and sort of more unique adaptation problem that I'm not saying they did a great job of, but I don't know. I just have more sympathy for what a difficult task they were handed there. And also I've been let down so many times. I don't take it as personally anymore. For all that being said, I'm impressed with their work in a lot of ways, but I'm not out here to say, oh, they are next level geniuses that I'm dying to see their next work. Like I see them attached to something and I'll be like, okay, I can expect a certain baseline of quality and competency there. And obviously other people will disagree with that, but Three Body Problem really proves that out to me, as well as, the 5 years where Game of Thrones was absolutely revolutionary, top quality TV. But it's not like, oh man, I'm really eager to see what they cook up next. It's just like, oh, they're attached to that? Good. If they got attached to Mass Effect, but in that case, it's adapted. I'd be like, hey, you know what?
Hey,
that's not going to suck. That's great.
That would be, I'd be down with that. And I mean, that would almost be perfect, actually, because the end of Mass Effect is so hotly debated and so detested in some circles that it would almost be just a perfect storm. I would be fascinated. Okay. Anyway,
and they're interested in sci-fi stuff and fantasy stuff. It works on that level. I think the only issue with it is that Mass Effect also kind of digs pretty deep into the Fermi paradox of it all, and feels a little too almost too close to Three Body in some ways.
It is kind of a combination of
the Aliens version
and Game of Thrones. It kind of is. Oh God.
Yeah. Anyhow.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
So that's my thing. I mean, this is sort of a redemption arc for those guys, I suppose. That there's consensus that this works.
Yes, definitely. I'm actually, again, I'm really quite blown away by how well this has been managed as an adaptation. Like, it's like just plainly on its face. But having even read the text, I'm just kind of like, I can't imagine how you would even begin to approach this process. And, making big swings and decisions like, well, what if it's about 5 guys at Oxford? Like that's quite smart, quite clever, as it turns out. And I think quite good for making this a global show rather than just an American show, which it will be. Or I don't know. I
Well,
don't
I
know
understand
exactly, but it seems like it's going to have to play globally.
Yeah, and I understand that Liam Cunningham's character is American in the book.
He's hardly in it, but yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
God, that's another great adaptation choice because him and Benedict Wong, their scenes together are the best parts of the show.
They're really terrific. Yeah. Cunningham. Yeah. It's cool to see him after, I mean, basically everyone knows him as Davos at this point. It's neat to see him as like the guy, the high status character in a room, which if you're kind of familiar with his other roles, he's done it before quite well, but it's such a different character for him. It's fun to see.
I mean,
yeah.
Davos's whole thing was he walks into every room announcing like, "Hey, everybody, I'm the beta guy. I'm the other guy. I'm the secondary guy. Have you seen my friend? He's really great. He's just
he's
the
a
ultimate
hype man.
wingman.
Yeah.
Like it's that. Yeah, the wingman Hall of Fame. On that Mount Rushmore, it's Goose from Top Gun and Davos.
Davos, Flavor Flav, and
of course, yes. And Flavor Flav's clock, just as it's the fourth head. All right. Do we have any final thoughts? I'm looking forward to going to space more with this show. They've teased that they're going to be putting bases on the moon, and I'm into that.
I'm very curious. I'm gonna read the damn books before the next season comes out. I'm pretty sure. I'm compelled now. I want to know, and I also kind of just want to enjoy the adaptation process at this point. I want to see what they do to the existing text. I've heard they get darker and weirder, which is pretty impressive because it's pretty dark and weird already. I mean, like, it's one thing to read a sequence, where a gigantic tanker ship is cut into small pieces by hundreds of prehensile fibers of razor sharpness that have been erected in the Panama Canal. To actually see it visualized is another thing entirely. And I
have logistical questions about that as well, because it seems like pretty much dangerous in the same way that the missile strike was in terms of actually like protecting the data that they're trying to get to or whatever, because it does end up with the whole thing falling apart and bursting into flames.
Very much. You could absolutely lose the thing they were trying to get out of there. Yeah. But who cares? Because it was an incredible sequence. It's a fantastic thing to watch. Yeah. And what an exit for Jonathan Pryce, who really only has one scene of interest in this whole show. Well, two, I guess, if you count him getting cut in half.
His death scene. Yeah. I think he was cut into fourths.
Yes, exactly.
Or possibly sixths. I think his ankles fell in two different directions and his upper thighs. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Great.
Great.
I mean, I think is that how you sold this show? Just like, look, there's going to be all this like hard science stuff and it's going to be weird and hard to get into. But also we're going to have this scene where we like dice and chop a giant freighter ship in the middle of the Panama Canal, chopping up hundreds of children along with it. And
that was definitely what I mean. It's what I was most excited to see. it was like, I can't wait for the tanker sequence. That's how do you do that? I wonder. And yeah, they just, well, I guess you just do it. It's exactly as it's written. Yeah.
You do it with a supermodel scientist wagging her finger at it the whole time. Even though after she set it up.
Could another actor have pulled that character off? I think that character is doomed no matter what.
Oh, possibly.
Another one could have been better, though. Yeah, sure.
I think that character is probably always going to be the weakest of the link of that group. But they could have not pulled me out of the show consistently the way that she did.
Benedict Wong, excellent. I love all the things he gets. Like his stuff with his son seems so unnecessary, but it's great. It's so terrific. Again, that character has such a different context in the book. In the book, like a big part of it is that the inciting incident is scientists across the world are killing themselves, and no one understands why. And he's just a guy investigating some of those crimes in China. And he kind of just gets swept up in the larger thing just because of his position. It's just a different guy, I mean, it kind of feels like, he's sort of a slovenly asshole cop. And it's,
that's so great is that you see the show that is based in China as well as England and all over. And you see Benedict Wong being cast and you think, okay, he's gonna be on the Chinese storyline. Or at least that's what I thought. And then it's like, no, he's just kind of a bloke from Manchester that is real. Actually, this story desperately needs something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be Manchester, but somebody, whatever the Chinese equivalent of Manchester is. I don't know, not that versed in it.
He's kind of a Chinese Charles Bronson it's. I mean, I don't know. Like he captures the essence of the guy in the book, but at the same time, he's not doing like overt stuff. He's not being like, like, I don't know, Martin Riggs. It's not doing cop tropes and shit. He's just a wonderful actor. You just put him on a scene with anyone really, and you're going to get something great out of it. And like, I can't even point at what he's doing in this that is so exceptional, but there he is. He's a standout character and he's everyone's favorite. He's great. I don't know. I mean, not if he's everyone's favorite. There's some other really good people in this, Liam Cunningham, some of the others, but Jing.
I think he's most people's favorite because it's such an essential character because he's unessential plot wise, but
right,
essential to have a normal person sticking around here. But it's also a normal person who also gets to be in the back rooms and dealing with and talking about the most interesting parts of the story.
I guess that is also his role in the novel. Is he's the everyman of sorts, who's there with all the, well, I may not be some sort of high-minded scientist, but yeah. Well, he's not a Southern lawyer, I guess, but yeah, he's the normal person amongst the geniuses.
He's somebody for the scientist to explain shit to. Like that's feels like it would be more necessary here, except I can't think of any scenes of them actually doing that for him in the show.
Well, he's smart too. He's not just like, I'm a rube, explain this shit for me. Yeah, everyone's really smart in this show. That's another thing that's hard, writing characters that are credibly smart. No one can really do that too well, and they do it pretty well here.
Yeah, I buy that.
80% of the Oxford group are really quite smart.
Yeah, and Rosalind Chow.
Totally
is really smart. I mean, that's why I love the sparring stuff where she's in custody and he's trying to sort of poke and prod at her, but she's not like a typical suspect because one, she's like a super genius, and two, doesn't feel like she needs to hide that much. But he's still trying to like pull things out of her. And
yeah,
I don't know. I love the little exchange where he's trying to prod her about her daughter's suicide and, break through her veneer that way, and says, like, I thought I was a shit dad. And her response is, oh, I'm sure you are.
Yeah. Good writing, good scenes. Not a scene in the book even, they're just,
I presume that was not in the book.
It's a very, very strong, just product. It's a strong piece of creative art altogether. I'm very impressed with this. I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm in love with this show. I think the potential for that exists. If it gets really crazy, and I could really be quite all in on this as a great show. But it's certainly one of the better ones that we've had in a while, I think. And it's just kind of brazen and audacious and fun. And for
that, that's why I'm looking forward to seeing more of it. Because it could, even it crashes and burns, seems like a real possibility.
I suppose so. Yes.
It seems like it's going to do it in ways that other shows have not done before. The way that no other show has destroyed a boat in the same way this one did.
Exactly. And I am compelled by the from what I understand of the future books, which is not much, but just honestly the titles alone, Dark Forest, and the third book, of course, is called Death's End. Ugh, that sounds scary to me. Excited to see where it goes.
That might be is that the Billy Elliot book? Finally get back to him.
Probably, right? I mean, we wouldn't just spend so much time shooting that brain out into space for no purpose, as it seems to be resolved in this season. Clearly, that's coming back in some horrible way.
Yeah, if that was all just a big shaggy dog thing, just to fire him off into space, and just be like, yeah, sometimes you screw this up, then they really should have played the Curb Your Enthusiasm outro music over the end of that episode.
Yeah. You watching that, by the way? New Curb?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's the only sort of like non-East Asian thing I'm watching these days. Shogun, Three Body Problem, Tokyo Vice, and Curb.
I got to catch up on Curb.
You can do that.
Of course,
whenever. It's not essential.
I've been distracted lately because me and my wife got sucked into Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip.
Did we go through some sort of like time dilation?
I don't know how to explain this.
Interstellar travel thing.
I don't know what to tell you, but I'm watching a lot of Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip lately, which is just like an incredible perfect diamond of cringe, if you will. Like, it's the amount of like personal axe grinding Aaron Sorkin is doing. It's amazing. There's a.
I mean, that's what he's known for.
There's a character based on his ex-girlfriend, Kristen Chenoweth. Okay, I think people understand about Studio 60.
You know, yeah. This is a special report. I will not be watching Studio Sunset Strip with you, but if you want to do a special episode where you explain it to me, then
if there's a clamor for it, sure.
Oh, you know what? Actually, this is somewhat serendipitous because you know what I've been randomly rewatching lately, outside of the stuff I mentioned, is 30 Rock.
Well, yeah. There's some good.
We could do a compare and contrast.
There might be some interest in that. No, I don't know if there's interest in that beyond the two of us, but that might be enough. Okay, put a pin in that. Maybe we'll come back to that at some point. Or not. Who knows? Right. Maybe it'll just be like, well, maybe we'll do a Night Country finale. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe not.
Okay. Three Body Problem. Good. Best show of the year so far for me? I don't know. I haven't finished Shogun. I'm a little behind. I've been watching too much Studio 60, but we'll see.
Oh, Shogun's just great. It's just very solid. I think that takes the cake for best, just because it's so well done and also but Three Body Problem is audacious, and it might end up staying with me longer just because there's not other things dabbling in that field, whereas there are historical epics to compete. Mm-hmm. With Shogun.
I mean, I know what Shogun's doing. You know, I'm like, yes, I know this. This is the sort of thing I'm familiar with. And Three Body Problem, there's not a lot to compare this to, honestly.
Yeah.
So that...
I even like the performances, Hiroki Saduya, whatever that name is doing a Ken Watanabe thing. Yes. Cosmo Jarvis is doing Tom Hardy flat out.
Oh, yeah, that's what he's doing.
In a way that is totally delightful. But yeah, nobody else is doing Three Body Problem stuff. Mm-hmm. And if they do, it'll more than likely suck. But we'll see if there's any imitators coming.
I don't know. Does this even have the?
Let's see
does
more.
This even have the ability to catch on and be duplicated in the way Game of Thrones did in its Netflix all at once dump format? I don't know. Be interested to see if they did it, but probably would be bad if we saw more like hard sci-fi ambitious shows happening. You know, those usually don't work out. If you recall all the things that tried to emulate Lost, like 2 years after that premiered.
Sure. And there is some limited success with Dark on Netflix, which I never watched. And The Expanse lived on a full life.
That's true. Mm-hmm.
That's one where it's almost like a too many books problem.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's like, okay, there's like 7 of these, 8. Now there's 8 of these. That's a lot. And it did seem like they lost the plot a little bit there. Like there's identifiable seasons there where it's like, but it's like, we're kind of dragging people from earlier books into
I got to catch up with that one.
Feels like.
I gotta make a commitment to watch The Expanse. I want to.
There's some fun stuff there, like about hard sci-fi space war stuff.
I kind of have a taste for that now. I'm kind of curious.
Weird that gets.
Maybe now is the time. Maybe we'll see. I don't know. I got a lot of fucking shows to watch, but maybe. All right.
You got a lot of Studio 60.
I got a lot of Studio 60 to get through. There's a whole second half of this. 22 episodes. They made 22 episodes of that show.
It's a different time, man. Aaron Sorkin wielded he was a real wall facer in the studio system at that time.
All right, that's it. Thank you for listening. Three Body Problem. I think when this comes back, we'll try to talk about it again. Hopefully it'll be not too long. All right. Rate and review on the podcast app of your choice. Blah. Thank you for listening.